Right, good afternoon everyone. My name is Patrick Hawe. I'm an associated member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer, and member of FINRA SIPC. All trades placed by myself are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial conditions. Please pause the video, read this disclosure. Positions update, nothing new on swings for me from the last time I was on YouTube. I got a couple earnings names out. PanW, Palo Alto, and Coinbase being probably the two biggest. Caesars as well. Looks like Caesars was mixed. They're trading that one down. Palo Alto looked decent though. Looks like beats, revenue beats. A little miss there. Looks okay though overall. So this PA and W trading up. And then Coinbase, yeah, so beat, big miss on EPS, revenue beat. Looks like some of their comments though, not great. I mean, Bitcoin, as well as the market, has obviously done decently in the past quarter or so. But what's this coin doing? Kind of mixed. Popped to 67. It was trading 66s for a hot minute there too, holding up well. Dove down to 60, now pretty much unchanged here. Option sellers winning coin for now. Alright, so let's talk about the markets. Big down day today, right? Overall, really slow day, even though it was a big day, big down day. Titled the video Futures Test 4,000 because that's what we did today. So here's a look at our daily candle for S&P futures. Low of the day 4,002. Technically, we did break this low of January 31st. Technically, I believe we also closed above it, so that's still okay, but we're pretty much at the absolute line in the sand for this overall bigger uptrend breaking, with the most recent higher low being January 31st, the one before that being January 25th, and then you're talking all the way back down to 3,900 back on January 20th. So closed down around like 4,011. Daily 5 MA up at 40.86. So really weak day today. Gap and go to the downside, gap and go to the upside for VIX as well. You can see UVIXY today did not fill the gap at all. Sold off a little bit off the open, but then pretty much trended up all day today. With SPY, pretty much closing on lows. So as you can see, UVIXY sold off a little. SPY opened up. Tried to go a little bit, failed on, and usually these gaps, we talk about this a lot. Derek's not here because he left early, so I can say this. 2-minute ADMAs can sometimes be good to watch, especially off the bigger gaps. More often than not, you get a bit of a look at the first look at this. So that was it for the high today, was the 2-minute ADMA. And then, of course, the 5-minute ADMA eventually worked down. But gap and go to the downside, right? So open, big red war, try to go. You can be long versus lows. Maybe you're getting risk covered, maybe not. That low breaks, big ugly red candle. Got to be careful and kind of, wait for bigger extension, a better risk. But once that opening low breaks, that's kind of, telling you to put your be a bit more patient for those longs today, right? And the IWM too, on that candle that the SPY broke, this was just ugly. This IWM, which we always talk about, I like to call it like the kind of risk on, risk off gauge, if you will. If the IWM's looking good, risk on. If the IWM is giving a signal that it's pretty ugly, kind of a risk off signal, right? Very ugly, super weak, very slow and orderly, but very weak, very heavy all day today. We finally we pretty much just downtrended for literally all day until this afternoon. We kind of went sideways as we had finally a 30-minute correction, as you can see at the end of the day. And today, once again, they didn't do it. I don't think it got pretty close though. Q's barely didn't, barely a touch SPY. But even on the 15 for the IWM as well, just you can see SPY bounced to its 15-minute midday or so. I believe the Qs were able to do it as well there. And I don't think the IWM, oh no, it did end up reaching it down there. But I don't think at the time this even reached its 15-minute EDMA. So the risk on, risk off gauge is very weak. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about what to look for going forward now, but honestly, I don't really have too much more to say for today, because that's all it really was. It was just, we gapped down. Did we fill the gap? No. Did we break the opening lows? Yes. Did VIX fill the gap? No. Did VIX break the opening highs? Yes. And it was really it from there. It was just clean trend, couple weak little bounces throughout the day today. Some of you guys were riding the short. Some of you caught some little weak bounces. I caught some little weak bounces and didn't ride the short. Some of the bounces were much better this morning too. I remember like these semis. Now just thinking back, it felt like such a long day today. Even though there was not too much going on, it was just like bleed. But some of these semis this morning, like this NVIDIA was able to go green. We looked at this MU, which is a semi-leader. I always bring this one up because it's a semi-leader. It's proven itself to be a semi-leader. It's also arguably one of the best value semis out there, in my opinion, besides Intel, but that's a problem in and of itself. That's more of a value trap. But we were looking at like this Intel 58 level this morning. This, if you weren't even watching this off the open, you missed it. Big rip into the green, mid 59s, and then just the market did it, right? This is about as good of relative strength as you can really get, honestly. And the market was still able to just bleed this thing and roll it all the way back over. There's not really too much to do there. You can be looking for dips in your relative strength names and this and that, but when the market just bleeds and doesn't really get too crazy to the downside or the upside, it is what it is, right? So that being said, though, speaking of getting too crazy to the downside or the upside, now that today's over, what can we look for? What can we expect going forward? And hopefully no one got, too hurt today. But I don't, we were not trying to come in and really be too aggressive today, I don't think. So I really hope, no one got too hurt today. And if anything, hopefully some of you guys made some money. But now what to look for going forward, because now we're in a tricky predicament here, right? The uptrend is possibly / arguably is breaking or has broken. VIX has finally woken up, right? Let's take a look at our VIX daily charts and our VVIX as well, as we always need to. So the VIX had a gap and go to the upside today above this 22 level. This is a gap that most likely will fill at some point. We'll see if it ends up being sooner than later. And the VVIX, which is the most important, big update today, gap and go to the upside. Interestingly enough, no new highs in February, so this made a high up that pretty much touched 100, little bit above 100. Back on when we finally really broke down February 9th. Is that right? February 9th was this day. Yep, this big red day for SPY. Interestingly enough, that the market has made a big lower low here, and the VVIX has not. And just out of curiosity, where was the VIX on February 9th? On February 9th, the VIX broke over 20 and closed above 20. So this is making a higher high. But I'm definitely not going to say VVIX is giving a bullish divergence right now with this lower high here, but this is something that might come into play. So, what are we looking for going forward now? So, charts are definitely broken. Today is a warning candle for sure. I mean, we've already had our warning candles, but today, I guess, is another negative candle that bulls are going to need to negate now. That opened, where we opened today, like 405, 403 we opened. Yeah, I guess we actually did open down at 403. So we're going to need to get above and close above today's high eventually going forward for bulls to, paint a better picture here. We got a lot of data coming up this week. So tomorrow, Wednesday, we have FOMC minutes at 2 p.m. This is not a rate decision. There's no press conference at 2:30. Just some algo headlines coming out at 2. The market definitely might move to that. Thursday, we have... tomorrow, Wednesday as well. We also have NVIDIA, which one of the last kind of big single names that can really move the market, but NVIDIA will be important. Then Thursday, Q4 GDP revision, and then Friday, PCE is going to be big. So we definitely have some data this week that can be market moving. On top of that, just taking a look here at technicals and sentiment, sentiment's definitely, people are getting, the bears are getting a little bit excited here again. And one step, I would just say to the bears, one step at a time. You definitely could have every right to be getting excited. But again, one step at a time. So all year, throughout the year plus, I guess, when I say all year, it just feels like all of 2022. I guess we're into 2023 now. But all of this bear market, 10 plus extended on the SPY, has been pretty good for an area where you really don't want to push, and if anything, you might want to look the other way. The other way has been paying decently on that. Most recently was this high over here on February 2nd, where a lot of us actually got short. A lot of us, myself included, did not hold that short until now. So bad job by myself, because it definitely would have been possible to hold that short for sure. But whatever. That being said, so that was the last time we were $10 extended, and that was to the upside. We almost got to that point today. SPY daily ADMA, and when I say $10 extended, I'm talking about from the daily ADMA. Mid 407s here. We'll see what that is tomorrow morning. But SPY made a low in the upper 398s today. So mid 407s, SPY mid 397s today would have actually already been $10 extended to the downside, which that's why we're in kind of a tricky spot here, because I guess the way I would say it would be medium term slash big picture, we're breaking important levels. Big picture, I think 3,900 is kind of more of a line in the sand there. Medium term, we're breaking important levels, or really risking breaking important levels. Technically, if we're breaking SPY 400, we really should be going to 395, 390. So we'll see if they chop 400. But medium term, we're breaking important levels. We're breaking the uptrend. We're really risking breaking this uptrend here. Bigger picture, tiny bit more breathing room. However, smaller picture, still on the daily chart. So a big, not a 5-minute picture or anything still. But smaller picture on the daily chart, we're getting actually a little overcooked to the downside short term. Just a little bit too much too fast here. Again, that's really just based on the $10 from the daily ADMA extension. We got some other sentiment stuff we can look at. We'll see what short-term tactical sentiment looks like tomorrow. I have a feeling it's going to be in the green, if not close. We'll see what put to call looks like as well after today. So where does that leave us going forward? So for tomorrow, let's just hope for a gap down tomorrow, another down day, to the point where we get that $10 plus extended from the ADMA. Then you can have more conviction in looking for a bit bigger of a bounce, for sure. If we get a gap up or a flat opening tomorrow, that's pretty annoying, because we won't be $10 extended, but we'll still be extended to the downside. We'll be still at this support kind of area, S&P 4000, which is looks like it's pretty much 398.50 on SPY. If you want to be exact with things, 398.50 SPY looks like pretty much exactly 4,000 on futures. So a flat or like small gap, flat gap, or even a gap up tomorrow will be annoying because we'll still be a little bit extended to the downside, but not $10 extended, so harder to have conviction there, kind of more just in the middle 50-50-ish. Possibly we'll be waiting for economic data. But I think pretty much one or two things is going to happen for the rest of this week. Either we're going to get $10 plus extended to the downside, and if we do, I'm going to look for a snapback bounce, whether it's 395 to 400 or 390 to 395/400. We'll see what it is. But if we get further extended to the downside, I'll be looking for a snapback. And I think that's going to be one of the things that might happen. The other thing that happens that I hope doesn't happen, what might happen, is we don't get that extension. We get pretty much 400 chop, which again, 400 is such a big level that you shouldn't be shorting. If you think 400's breaking, you're not shorting 400 to cover 399. Like, you're shorting 400 because you think this uptrend's breaking, and we got a date with 3,900 and then eventually 3,800, and we'll see as things develop from there. But for now, like, I know we're below 400, we're pretty much at 4,000, but this isn't really like 400 breaking in a really big way, right? So the fact that we're downside extended into this area, it is an area. 398.50 is really 4,000. The fact that we're slightly downside extended into this, more likely than not, we actually do get 400 chop. But again, say the ADMA is down to like 405-ish, 406, 405. If you see SPY under 395 in the first half of this week, I will most likely be buying some for a bounce. Most likely, though, we don't get that. And we have to wait for PCE or something like that on Friday. So, I think that's really it for where we are and what to look for going forward, which is either, again, if we get further downside, we're going to get a snap back. However, it's also very possible for us to just chop 4,000 as we are slightly downside extended. Would prefer more downside extended, but we are downside extended into 4,000 here. So we might get chop into like Friday's number or something like that. I think that's all I have to talk about. Definitely not a great day today, unless you're just kind of riding shorts on the downside or something like that. Okay morning. Then just really just grindy trend day, which, those aren't bad either. But it's usually a bit less exciting, to say the least. And so happy to take a look at any questions you guys got. First question I see from Hemming. Hey Pat, I got long Nvidia at 1250 based on 5-minute chart. That sounds a little bit late in the day to only be using a 5-minute chart. In my opinion, one, you should never only be using a 5-minute chart, ever. You should always be using, like, pretty much what I do, 5, 15, 30 daily, or 2, 5, 15 daily. But especially that late in the day, definitely don't only be using a 5-minute chart. Definitely also be looking at your 15 and 30 and daily. That being said, let me read your question. 1250, 5-minute charts that stop at 1245 low. This trade failed and it could not get risk covered. Do you think the idea was worth trying? 1250, 1245 low. Yeah, I mean, I see what you're looking at here. It curls up, it consolidates at this 210. I don't love the time of the day. I don't love how it's not extended. I really only like buying downside extension. If you're in a downtrend, in a very clear downtrend, which you are at this point, I really only like buying downside extension. Otherwise, this happens often in these grindy downtrends as you get these points where it looks like you're going to break up just to get stuffed back down. Um, it's at 210 there. What does it look like on the daily chart? 210 is a level, but it had already failed it, so you're not buying 210 the first time, which is the best time, which actually would have been the open. And even over here, though, it chopped 210 and ended up holding. But you're buying a daily level that's already tried to hold all day and is kind of failing and is now retesting it, and more likely than not, that's actually gonna fail as people that have been buying 210 all day are now underwater and want to get out of the way. Um, so yeah, so those are my overall. It's not great. Obviously, thanks for sharing. This is why you ask these questions. This is why we learn. Just it's the time of day. I don't like the time of day. I don't like how it's not extended to the downside. I don't like how you're only looking at the 5. Maybe you are looking at the 5 and the 15 too or something, but let's take a look at like the 15. It's just this is already bouncing from mid 208s into 210, right? Like in a downtrend. I don't want to buy 210 when this bounced off 208. I don't love that 15. And that 30 looks like you actually bought into the downward 30 at that time, which adds to a reason why you should always look at all these time frames at once, and another reason why this wasn't great. It looks like you actually bought into the downward 30 ADMA at that time. So those are all the reasons why I don't really love that, and why it, not why it failed, but just I don't think really the probabilities were with you. NVIDIA is a crazy stock. It's an expensive stock. It's a crazy stock. It's one. If you're telling me you're like scalping this and you're risking 50 cents to make $1 or $2, then like fine. If that's your trade, then fine. That you got to know that though before. If that's not your trade and you're looking for a bigger NVIDIA move, and because this thing can move 5, 10 plus points, I just don't really see the setup there at all for that. So yeah, I hope all that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't, Hemming. I see what you were seeing for sure. I think if you scoped out a bit in the bigger picture, think of where things have come from. Again, like that 210 level, it's a nice level on the daily chart, so maybe you're buying that 210, but first time's the best time. Bounced off it this morning, bounced off it later in the morning, and then it ended up failing it, and then you're buying back up into it. If anything, honestly, knowing that 210 level, you could even be looking at short up there. So yeah, I hope all that makes sense, Hemming. Let me know if it does not. Kyle says he was watching HLX at the open for a breakaway gap versus 825, 200 million share. Yeah, I think they reported earnings down near 8, so it could get faked out off the open. Was a little spready, so didn't want to uptick. Market buyer stop in. This gave you momentum and follow through. Is wondering in spready situations like this. 825 was your level. Breakaway gap versus 825. Perhaps 850 if you scrolled out enough. 850 is a level. The way to do this, if you're looking for momentum too, which I think you kind of said you were, didn't want to uptick, was wondering in spready situations like this, should I have tried to bid in? I wouldn't say avoid altogether. This was off of earnings. Sometimes I like to, let it open, buy it through the opening high. That's something you can do sometimes. I don't know what this looks. It looks like the opening 2-minute high was 845 ish, 850. So perhaps you could have bought through 850. Honestly, if you're not getting it by 860 ish, then you're probably just missing it. Then looking at the 5-minute chart, I guess you could have bought in versus that pull there. I don't know. That one looks tricky, Kyle. I don't blame you for missing that at all. But to give you a simple answer to your question, it's better. If it's spready, you gotta know that. So you gotta give it the proper room and the proper risk. That being said, if it's spready, that also means it's thinner and can move more. So this name that's an $8 name probably moves more than Ford, which is a $12 name, because it's a lot thinner, right? Or at least it has the potential to. So with that being said, give it, you got to give it the proper space risk and everything like that. But it's better to, theoretically, it is better to buy it than to get filled on the bid. Because if you're getting filled on the bid, that means someone's selling it to you. You probably shouldn't be getting filled on the bid. You want to be taking the offer, adding to the momentum, adding fuel to the fire. If it's spready, whatever, but if it's gonna go, then it's gonna go, right? And if it's gonna go and it's a spready name, then then what's going to happen is there's going to be a bid. Someone's going to be on that bid. It's going to get partially filled, not going to get filled on the way. People are going to chase the offer, and eventually that bid's going to have to step up, and they're going to have to keep stepping up, and they're going to have to keep stepping up because people are going to keep chasing the offer away from that bid. And that's what makes it go. And if it doesn't go, then the bid gets whacked and it goes back down. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. That's how kind of I view it, though. For example, when I bought Home Depot this morning, that's spready, but I bought through the opening high, which I forget what time. I think I gave it 30 seconds or something at least, and then went through the high of 306. I bought through 306. I had a buy stop at 306. I didn't, try to watch it go through 306 and then try to get 305, 75 or something like that. Went up to 308. I was able to sell some, and then I got stopped out of that. But yeah, what's right and what's wrong to each his own. But theoretically, you want to buy it. You don't want it. It's almost a bad thing if you get filled on the bid, theoretically, especially when you're looking for momentum. You want to add fuel to the fire, theoretically. You bought at the 9:45 pull-in, but was just curious about so the trade at the open. So yeah, I hope that makes sense, Kyle. Rig earnings. Ouch, looks like it's down a little, but back to where it was a couple weeks ago. No, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Still. SPY 50-day 396, 200. Probably bounce, but if we break... Oh yeah, so I'd mentioned too, the daily trend line. That's another one. I had the wrong chart up here, but this trend line, the year trend line resistance from 2022, which I've now changed from the color red because we've broken through that resistance. More likely than not, for you trend line people, more likely than not, you get a bounce off this the first time we test it, if we test it. Now that we're through it, which, if we were to see this week, it would be around 392. If we were to see 392 this week, we would more likely than not also be $10 extended from the ADMA on the daily. So that'd be that'd be a good one for sure, I would think. If we see that, we'll see. But that's worth mentioning as well. Thanks for that, Mike. Zach, the K1 forms will be emailed to you. I don't know the exact date. They usually come pretty late, which is a little annoying, but sometime in March they'll get emailed to you. Hey Pat, when a stock drops below a key level and you buy on the way back up through that key level, is that a setup you're only going to try once? No, definitely not only willing to try once for sure. No, no, definitely not. And that it doesn't matter how many times it goes. I mean, not that it doesn't matter. It does matter. Everything matters. Nothing matters, right? But it doesn't really matter so much how many times it goes through, because at the end of the day, if it's above the level, if the level's 400 and at the end of the day it closes at 401 and it goes through 400 a bajillion times that day, and you're buying 400 spot 01 and you're putting your sell stop at 399.99 and you are giving all your money to your broker dealer, and at the end of the day it's 401 and you miss it because you're just so burnt out, but it's above the level, so it closes above, it's good, right? So how do you do that but avoid get shaken out? It can be hard and a bit tricky to do that. I'm trying to figure it out as I go along, right, with you guys. That's what I talk about. So when there's a key level like 400, again, for example, what's going to happen, so this may or may not happen with SPY here, but let's say the key level is 400 and then the key line in the sand is 398.50, which is 4,000 on futures. Let's just say this happens. I don't know if this is going to end up happening, but let's just say this happens. So if SPY is breaking 400 and SPY trade, look at it in like $10 intervals. So if SPY is breaking 400, what that means is this should be on its way down to 390, right? If it's losing 400, you want to, that's why if you're long and you're stopping out at 400, you're stopping out at 400 because this is going much lower, probably 390, maybe even 380. On the flip side, that's what we dealt with at 380 here, where they like didn't hold the level, but they kind of did end up holding the level. What happens is you don't have buyers. I mean, you do, but you don't have buyers like at 400, and then if it's below 400, they're done. But the buyers are buying under a level. They're buying in an area. I type that up a lot too, right? Like, I'll be, AMD, whatever, 77. Buyers under 77 today. There were buyers under 400 for SPY today. It ended up bottoming under 399, but under 400, there were buyers. It stopped going down. We trended down all day today, and then we finally stopped going down. Why? Because there were buyers under 400. There weren't enough to drive us really back over 400 in a big way and give us the cycle of the short squeeze that makes us go higher, this and that. But we stopped going, in a simple terms, we went down the first half of the day because there were more sellers than buyers, and then we went sideways the second half of the day because there were equal buyers and sellers. But that means there were more buyers stepped up, and when did more buyers step up? Under 400. So people might be buying SPY under 400, versus like 398.50 in simple terms, because 398.50 is 4,000. But the point is, you don't want to be so exact with the level where, again, it's 1 penny below and that's it. It's usually like, okay, if the level is 75, you want to buy 75 and under versus 74. Like, you're trying to make $1 off the level, give it $1 below, something like that. It's not exact name for name, but that's how you want to look at it, because you almost want to envision like this, I don't know, this Apple candle on 110, like with this tail, and say Apple in the middle of the day here, and Apple's down at 128. This looks like a big red tail, but you're envisioning that candle before it happens because there's buyers under that level. So I know I'm just like kind of going on a rant now, but it's hard because again, I hate losing money, right, on a trade that works, like an idea that works. It's the worst thing ever to lose money on that. So how do you capitalize and not shake yourself out, but give it the proper risk still and still take some size? It can vary. It can vary. But so yeah, I just kind of went on a little bit of a rant for your question, DJ. But answer is no, definitely not. Only really willing to try it twice. And the way you try it too is not usually just versus day lows. Like for SPY today, say you think this buyer's under 400 versus 398, or under 399 versus 398 or something like that. You're not just buying like versus that intraday low here where you're trying to get that perfect 5 cents little risk and take big size with 5 cents risk or something like that. It's usually better to buy versus a daily level coming from some other day, some other chart, whether it's yesterday or the day before, or a month before or something like that. So we're extended to the downside. Right now, SPY under 400 is a good buy because we're extended to the downside. But what's the out on that? It's a little, you got to give it room here. But if we don't end up breaking the level, then we're good. So I hope that makes sense, DJ. And then for an overthrow, is that a setup you only try once? Yeah, no. So I'm definitely not willing to only try it once. Honestly, more often than not, it's better to keep trying it because if it's going beneath that level, it should be going lower, right? That's why you're stopping yourself out. It shouldn't be going back above that level. So if it goes below the level and back above and you buy it, tries, doesn't work, stops everyone out, then it's like, okay, well, it stopped you out. Now, this is definitely failing now. And then it goes back above again. That tells you that this buyer's under that level, right? But how do you, then at that point, that's when I'm giving myself more room on the trade and not just doing it versus that intraday low. Because in my head, I'm saying, okay, there's buyers in this area. I don't want to get shaken out versus the intraday low here. They might shake around a bit on the 5-minute. That's what they like to do. But there's definitely buyers in this area. Buyers are showing up. So, yeah, definitely. So, I guess to sum it all up, definitely willing to try it more than once for sure. Ideally, though, you just don't get shaken out, really. Just ideally, you can identify that the level where you thought buyers would show up, they have shown up, and you can kind of work it in that area. So I'm not necessarily, just because it goes through the level and then makes a new intraday low, I'm not necessarily stopping myself out on that new intraday low because it's in an area where there are buyers. And if it's at a lower price, if I liked it 50 cents higher, I should like it even 50 cents lower, right? So yeah, I hope that makes sense. 12:45. Oh, that NVIDIA Microsoft headline. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, the K1s usually come pretty late, which is unfortunate, but yeah. So if you're buying it, hemming on to NVIDIA, if you're buying it on the news, which got announced on this candle, then yeah, it just failed. Same thing. So if you're buying it, if you're telling me that's why you bought it, then I like your trade more. I like it more based on that, and it just failed for you, which is just unfortunate, but it's an ugly market. So if there's plenty of sellers to sell, they're going to use that headline and use that liquidity to sell into, which is what they did. Ricky says he was short Microsoft at 3 o'clock on the inside 15 and down after it failed up. Let's take a look. have went with QQQ. Would it make sense to move my stop on half to 252 at that point since I was so close? Yes, that for sure makes sense, Ricky, for sure. And that's when proper trailing and money management kind of coincide and they can clash a bit. But for sure, if you're getting, if you're a dollar, I don't know exactly what you were here, but yeah, if you're, I don't know, yeah, risking a dollar, you need a dollar, you're 95 cents in the money, you ideally don't want to give that all back. So I don't hate that. It's also time of day. I don't love that in the time of day, really, because you're probably not getting that big of a move to be able to swing that. So time of day isn't perfect, but honestly, because of the time of day, that's even more reason to be even tighter with it and do exactly what you just said. Kind of, if you're getting, say, what'd you say you were, like if you're 6 cents within the money and you're watching it there, put a stop like 10 cents lower than there. Kind of a risk reward stop, something like that. Definitely don't do that every time. That's more of a tighter way of trading, but that makes sense to me to do that for sure. Again, based on time of day and everything like that. Usually not, Kyle. Depends, but usually not because we only have a certain amount of demos. But if no one needs it at the time, then perhaps yes. Obviously, there's always old school paper trading, which is writing down your entries on a piece of paper. I've noticed that certain days, like today, focusing on the 2-minute charts. Yep. I don't really have rules or suggestions, Bandit. Honestly, I look at the 2, 5, 15, 30, and daily all day, all the time. There isn't, as much as it's like, oh, now it's 10:30, now, you should be looking more at your 15-minute charts. That doesn't mean you just switch from only a 5 to only a 15, right? Like, I blew this chart up, but this, you guys know this is what my screen looks like that I'm sharing. And then on my other screen, I have something similar, only it's actually it's a 2, 5, 15 daily. That's just what I look at. But it's about looking at all of them at the same time, where even just like today, you got that 2 minutes. That was the high there today. Looks like you were a little extended down there as well. That 15-minute bounce, though, ended up coming with this 2-minute finally curling up here. And that was this 5-minute bounce to 21.15. That was a 15 bounce as well there. That was the one some of us caught. And that was with into 400, given that we just came pretty much straight down from 404 into 400. At that point, not too much extension there, but you're extended on the 1530. But yeah, honestly, no rules or suggestions, Bandit. I look at all of them all day, all the time, and compare where they are on their 5:15 daily 2-minute compared to their ADMA. Yeah. More often than not, these gap and go days, the bottom and or top is found at the 2-minute ADMA. I've definitely noticed that more often than not. If you're waiting for that 5-minute, you're waiting a little. Not that you're waiting too late, but you're definitely getting a not perfect price per se. Let me check YouTube, see if there's any questions. Sebastian, sup Sebastian? Hey Pat, what do you think about buying SPY on the inside 5, break at 1205, double bottom, UVixie making a lower high? Also, what about the idea, AMD? Can you explain your HD trade? A couple questions, sure. So, a double bottom on the 5 minute in the middle of the day. I mean, and UVIXI's not making new highs. Okay. Honestly, I like that idea. Hopefully, it's not just the 5 minute. You're also saying that it's you have 15-minute extension, 30-minute extension as well. And honest, and this is the problem, or not the problem, but this is why these extension trades can be tricky too. I'm not sure what happened to you, Sebastian, if you got stopped out on a new low before that bounce happened. Um, Looks like that was like mid four. I mean, that's not much of a bounce, really. I like the idea. I like the idea. If you got pushed out, what I would say to you is just keep in mind with the 15 and the 30 minute. Looks like you still hadn't touched your 15. The 30, it finally worked today. It took all day. But the 15 for sure. Like, you were definitely touching that 15-minute EDMA at some point today. So if you did get pushed out on that at all, I would say if you were looking at your 15 as well, you possibly could have not been pushed out and even added more a little bit lower, looking for that 15-minute bounce at that time, which UVIXI, I mean, very tricky what that UVIXI did at that time too. It looked like it poked a high by 1 penny, literally a high by 1 penny, and then rolled over a bit more, which after consolidating and breaking a new high, this just had a 10-cent kind of measured move bull flag. This should go to 580 on new highs, makes a new high, doesn't go, failed breakout there, gives you the bounce. So I like it, Sebastian. I like the idea. I like what you said there. If you got pushed out, keep in mind where you are in the 15 and 30 there, because at that point of the day too, you're playing a 15-minute chart, or you should be anyway. So you don't want to get stopped on a 5-minute pivot when you're looking for a 15-minute pivot, or that's what you should be doing anyway, I think. And the 15-minute pivot hasn't come yet, so you can't stop when there's no pivot yet. That's what makes those trades a little bit dangerous, but no risk, no reward, right? Also, what about the idea of buying AMD at the open for an RDR once it had the opening low? RDR would have been back through 77, right? Yeah, 77, 77.50. I like the idea. I like the idea. We were looking at I was looking at MU this morning. I ended up missing the trade, but that's fine because the market rolled it all the way over. But yeah, I like the idea. Day 3 down, solid move from mid 85s to mid 80s to mid 70s in half a week. Daily ADMA 81 this morning, so you're looking to buy up through mid 77s with the daily ADMA up at 81. The reward is there. I like it. I like the idea. Pretty much would have just bought that 77.50. Should have been able to get risk covered and then some. Maybe not then some, but at least get risk covered. And then the market just kind of fizzled that out. But I like the idea. Market just didn't give it to you. Semi's relative strength, though, is interesting today. We'll see if they come back for those. The HD trade, just a trade off earnings. Just seeing if they could buy the earnings up, which I guess I looked at the wrong one. Walmart would have been better. That's what they did for this Walmart today. But just looking for momentum, which these earnings names, if a name trades on earnings and you think you can trade with momentum, simply the way to do it usually is to let it open, let it give you a little bit of a range, and then buy through the high or short through the low. You typically don't want to fight earnings trends. earnings names tend to trade in the direction in which they're trading throughout the day. That day, they usually, if they're gonna trend, they usually trend well. Otherwise, sometimes they can just be choppy and flat, but they're usually not like making a big high and then making a big low and then making a big high after that, right? So Walmart did what Home Depot I was looking for it to do today, but it opened. I think I only gave it like 30 seconds because this trade's on New York, and usually these New York names take a couple minutes to open when they are post earnings. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I think I can show you. Yeah, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, when you're looking at your level 2 and you're looking for, so this Home Depot, you can see NY 1 low, NY2 KO NY5, but then as opposed to like an Apple N2, pins is New York, QQQN. So that's the exchange they trade off of. So Home Depot trades New York. Usually these take a couple minutes to open, and that's just simply looking for the New York exchange to be trading, right? That's where it's listed. But this actually ended up opening pretty much right away. So right away it gave that opening volume, gave it, I waited 30 seconds or again, whatever it was. 306 was the opening high, put a buy stop in at 306. It triggered me in, and traded up to 308. I was able to sell some like mid 307s and then went through the low, got stopped out. Was pretty much a break-even trade for me. Was actually, break-even. So that's the Home Depot trade. If I did that with Walmart, shoulda, coulda, woulda, no shouldas in trading, but that would have ended up working beautifully. If you asked me how you would have caught Walmart today, I would have said the same thing, just knowing it's an earnings name, paying attention at the open, let it open. Looks like it shook around a bit. Not really, though. Pretty much opening 2-minute high is 144, trades up through 144, and that's a wrap from there. Might be a little off topic, but do you know what platform you guys can use for futures? T3, you can trade futures at T3. Definitely email info@t3trading.com for more information on that. We do offers futures trading, and you don't need to be licensed for that either. For just futures, anyway. Other than that, I've never traded futures, so for like a side broker or anything, I don't really have any great recommendations, honestly. What Tate's saying, NDAC is NASDAQ opens at 9:30 always. So that's something to watch too. That's what so like Alibaba is going to report on Thursday morning. Alibaba is New York, NY. So this Alibaba will most likely take a couple minutes, and you'll see, it'll be open at 9:30, and Alibaba will be printing on other ECNs, but not on New York. It'll be really slow, and then all of a sudden it'll explode in volume when it opens on New York. But NASDAQ is all computers. That opens at 9:30. New York still has a specialist on the floor for each stock. So it's whenever that guy and or girl opens that stock, which sometimes it can take a couple minutes. How could you have had a clue versus HD? There was the CEO was saying some positive comments this morning. I know, and I remember posting them. Can you guys hear me? My internet looks like it's freezing right now. Cool. Sorry, my Chrome froze a little bit there. Anyway, the Walmart CEO this morning, I'll go back later. I definitely remember posting some of his comments though, but the Walmart CEO was making comments that, for lack of a better phrase, sounded like he was basically saying the worst is behind them. They moved a lot of negative guidance forward in the past year, and he's trying to make it sound like the worst is behind him. So there were some good Walmart CEO conference call comments / CNBC interview comments that could have given you the hint there. That being said, HD is a good name, right? It's a quality name. So even though it traded poorly today, big picture, I'm sure this Home Depot is a good buy under 290. Or sorry, under 300, right? But we'll see. It's an ugly candle there. Looks like I got through most of everything. Any other questions, or you guys all good? Pretty rough day for markets. Pretty rough day, but getting close to $10 extended, which is when I get more excited. Definitely get more excited when we get in that area, whether it's the upside or the downside. When Josh called out short on NVIDIA at 940-ish. NVIDIA was strong, broke through yesterday's close. Typically, you don't want to short strong stocks. Let's start by saying that. Only thing really to look for, I'm not even going to tell you necessarily to look for like a 5-minute pivot. I'm just going to tell you to mind your daily levels, which you should always be doing on any name. So NVIDIA was strong this morning. Daily ADMA 216. This 215 looks like a little bit of an inflection point as well. 210, 215. So it was strong this morning, ripped red to green. Then when it's green, when it's 215, 216, look at where it's at its daily chart. Oh, it's at its daily ADMA there. Then you can look for a short signal, which did end up coming on the 5 minutes with this red candle here and then all the way back down. Very atypical for that to just give back that morning rip, but today was obviously very, very weak. But more often than not, though, I would advise you to just not short a strong stock, short a weak stock, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I would say for NVIDIA, like the daily level, seeing where it bounced to, again, 215, 216, and then seeing where that is on the daily, that's an area that makes sense where some resistance should be, right? The market's going to head down today, which it was doing this morning. This NVIDIA most likely isn't just breaking Friday's high and going. So, how do you change the color by price? Like I have. So you go to your settings, design, and then in the design tab, level 2, styles, fonts, and colors. And then you can change it for your active or your inactive. So I only have it active for my active one, or the one I'm clicked on, and then my inactive is just like all blue. All right, looks like I got through everything. So yeah, we'll see how they gap us tomorrow. Let's hope for a decent gap down. Very possible that we're going to be $10 extended to the downside now from the 80 daily ADMA tomorrow. Very possible and more likely that we chop 400, which is annoying. But the market likes to be annoying, right? So we'll see how they gap us. Let's hope for some weakness, and we should be able to get a nice snapback out of that. But yeah. All right. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow morning.